Guys, what's up? We are in Oneonta, Alabama, and I'm riding around with Jacob Graul, and we're getting ready to look at an apartment complex that he had purchased and he's renovated, brought rents way up. So, Jacob, tell me about these apartments that we're passing through right
7
now.
duplexes. We came in and they had a brick facade, so we painted all the bricks, painted all the fronts, got a bunch of the tenants out, brought new ones in, LVP, wooden cabinetry, updated all the light fixtures inside, got everything just really nice. We don't allow pets here, so there's no pets allowed here. I have very, very low turnover here. I have a lot of older individuals that rent from me. We keep this super quiet and keep everything down here. It's turned out to be a nice place.
So, let's talk about, can we go back through the back here in a second?
Yeah.
So how long have you had these?
2022.
And when you first got them, the rents were what?
Like $450, $500.
And you said you got all the tenants out. Is that something you wanted them out, or you wanted to you raise the rents? How did you go about that whole process of replacing tenants and then getting the rents
It didn't happen like all at once, but just gradually as we raised rents, tenants were moving out. And so we were able to go in and renovate the unit and then raise the rent even more. So we just kind of strategically planned for updating the buildings, getting them nicer on the inside, and then trying to get top market value off these.
And so what are they renting for now?
800 to 850.
Okay. And what all did you have to do on the insides?
Well, they weren't just terrible. So we did a lot of like LVP paint, updated the paint, and then we new countertops, new light fixtures, and just really combing through them and fixing everything.
Okay, so I think a lot of the questions that most people would want to know is, first of all, how'd you find the deal?
A realtor called me, a friend of mine. He called me and he sent me many deals. And so he called me and said, "Hey, I think I have something you might be interested in." I stopped exactly what I was doing. I knew where they were at. I met him over here. We walked the property, and I made an offer standing right there in front of him, right there. And he called the guy, and we just did it over the phone at first, and within 10 minutes, and then in about 30 days we closed it.
Wow. And so when you go over there to walk a property like that, first of all, realtor calls you. Why did the realtor call you?
He just knows that that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for multifamily apartments or houses, and he also knows that once I get a hold of something, that I'm going to invest the necessary money into it to make it nice. So he just sends me deals. He knows I can close, and he trusts what we do, and that's it.
Oh, so the realtor calls you. He knows what you're looking. He or she, they know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And you drop everything. You get over there. You knew where they were. When you're walking the property, what are you looking for? Because some of the units or all the units might be occupied
right
at that point. What are you looking for, and how are you able to make an offer so fast?
Well, he actually he managed them as well. So he was actually able to get me in all the units that day, really. So he just walked me through them. I was able to look at them and see. I just kind of was walking around and saying, okay, I would have to do this, I would have to do this, I have to do this. But they're all livable. Like, they're all a situation where I could keep the tenants in there and raise the rent. And I didn't have to just kick them all out and renovate the whole thing at one time. So that's kind of what we did, was we would just raise the rents gradually. And then as tenants would move out, we would go in and just renovate the entire unit, and then we would get even more for the rent.
How do you encourage tenants to move out when you know that you want to raise the rents, you know that you want to fix them up so that you can raise the rents? How do you legally encourage folks to leave?
Well, I don't really tell them to leave. I just kind of tell them what's going to happen, and I'm just very transparent with them. If they're outside of their lease terms, um, or they're on a month to month, which was what all these people were on. They weren't tied to any one price. So I was just I had my property manager, she works for me. She went to door and talked to each of them, and she told them exactly what was going to happen. He's going to raise the rents to this number, and then in a certain amount of months, he's going to raise the rents to this number again. And as people move out, he's going to renovate the units. When I bought the complex, there was already 2 units that were vacant. So I actually had people that was already living there that was keeping their place really nice. They wanted the newer unit. So they moved in and paid the higher rate, moved in there, and then I renovated their units, and then I had people moving out at the same time because they didn't want the rent increase. Because I went up like $150 from one month to the next, and I just explained to them like, hey, everything that you're going to pay in increased rent, I'm going to increase your comfort of living, the look of this place. Like, I'm going to put it all back into the property. Like, this isn't going into my pocket to stay forever. I'm going to take everything and put it right back into it. So that's what I did. We updated all the exteriors to all the buildings, while they were living there. Painted all the doors, changed a bunch of windows out. Just did a lot of work to that one. So, and I don't know if that answers your question, but I was just transparent with them, and I just told them. But you can't do that if they still have 8 months left on their contract and they don't agree to a higher rate. You have to honor their lease.
Right. So how did you know what to offer?
So I knew how much I was willing to put as a down payment. I knew what he was asking. And then I just calculated. I called an insurance agent kind of after the fact because I'd already had an 8-plex. So I kind of took a little bit of the numbers from there on what it would cost on insurance. So I kind of figured out what I wanted to net per door, how much I wanted to make per door. And then I knew how much I was willing to put as a down payment. And I kind of got my number down to where I wanted to net like this amount per door, and not at the prorated pro forma number that didn't exist yet. I'm talking about the numbers of the building that was there in that moment. So I won't buy anything that doesn't cash flow day one. Yes, I'm going to do tons of work, and yes, I'm going to fix it up, but to me, it's got to make sense day one to make sense on day 101, So that's kind of that's what I offered, if that makes sense. I knew in my head what I wanted per door, and then I did the math on what I could offer and given on how much I was willing to put down.
And obviously at this point you'd been doing real estate for many, many, many years. So you've already sold houses, bought and held rental property. You kind of probably knew what the market rents were, what you wanted to get them to. You knew you had all that information already.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the financing piece of it. So you mentioned down payment. You mentioned you're going to close it in 30 days. What did you do from a financing standpoint, or what did you think you were going to do, and what did you end up doing?
So relationships are key. Like, I have a really good relationship with several VPs at banks, and I just went to one that I felt like we could close it the best, and he would do me well on the rates and the points and all that stuff. And I called him up and said, hey, and he's in my world. He knows what I'm doing. Like, he's very involved with like like I talk to him very often about the deals I'm buying, the flips I do, the apartment. So he's like rooting me on, like he understands. And I told him the details of the property. I told him what I thought I could get the rents to. I told him how much I thought I was going to have to put into it. Uh, I gave him, I just laid it out for him, and he said, "Send me a contract." And the next time I talked to him was, he told me that the appraisal came back good, and that we were ready to close the next week. So we closed it like in 30 days.
So I think that that's like a misconception a lot of folks have, is they need to bring in hard money or private money, just because one of the reasons mentioned is speed and convenience, not necessarily a credit issue. It's, oh, my private lender or my hard money lender can do this fast. Well, you're talking about doing, how many units was it again?
14.
14 units in closing it in 30 days.
Yeah. So they really just have to underwrite the property, and once title comes back and they get everything on their end finished, I mean, there's shouldn't be anything holding you up if like you're already they already have all your tax returns.
You're already a customer. You already have a relationship with them.
Relationship.
So it's not like they're having to start from square one. So just talk. I mean, when did you figure that out, Jacob, that banks could be an ally for you and to have all your ducks in a row? Because, I mean, we've talked previously, and you bought your first house at 19, right? Your primary residence at 19.
Right.
So you had been dealing with, you got a VA loan on that one, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So you were dealing with banks from day one, it seems like. So when did you figure out, from an investment standpoint, that, hey, banks can be an ally, and banks can actually, I don't need to go the hard money lender route necessarily?
So I've never used hard money, never used a private money lender ever. I just didn't know that there was. I just knew that was the way that. So, as we said before, mentors. I got in front of people as I was doing this that was very successful, and they had a lot of units, or they had a lot of crews working and flipping houses, and they were where I saw myself wanting to be in the future. So I spent time with those guys, and I listened to what they had to say, and every one of them, none of them said go find a private money lender. None of them tried to loan me money. They all told me, hey, go meet Kevin at this bank and tell him I sent you, and develop a relationship with him. Bring this, and this. Tell him what you're doing. Tell him where you want to go, and see what happens. And that's what I did. I would go meet these people. I would go build relationships with them, and I would give them all the information. They never had to ask me for information, like on a property, like what am I paying for it? How much is it going to do? How much am I putting into it? What do I think the rents are going to be? Like everything they were going to need from an underwriting perspective, I gave it to them. And I'm also a realtor, so I was pulling comps and sending them comps and all this stuff. I was doing all that stuff. So I was sending them all the information that they needed to make a intelligent decision, and obviously they were doing their own homework as well. But just over a period of years, when all that matches up, you develop a relationship, and things get streamlined pretty easy. So,
and just the difference, this is probably not a Wells Fargo or a Chase or a Bank of America. It's probably not a big bank. It's probably a small town lender, what we call portfolio lenders.
That's right.
So can you talk about what the difference is between working with why did you decide to go with a smaller bank? Is it for those reasons? And why would you not work with maybe a Wells Fargo or one of these bigger banks?
Yeah, so my mentors just explained to me, they was like, hey, there's a lot of red tape with these bigger companies. They got to answer to corporate or some person up in who knows where. He said you need to go to a small local bank and deal with these local guys. And a lot of times they have their hand on the pulse of what's going on in the market, and they're dealing with other investors. Like they already are pretty in tune to what you're doing, and they can help you streamline the process as well. There's one of my rentals there. So that's kind of what it was just streamlining, developing relationship. Relationship is so key. I mean, I don't know any other way. Here's another rental of mine right here.
I feel like I'm right. Oh, your name's on the building
So
too.
there's another rental.
So this really is like riding with Matthew Gregory, where we're riding around. He's like, I flipped that house, I flipped that house, I flipped that house.
No,
And I was like, I got that rental, I got that rental.
Matthew's the goat, man. He's a good dude. So yeah, small local banks. I mean, that's it, man.
Awesome.
I don't know any other way to say it.
I just want to kind of make the point that you don't have to necessarily be thinking in terms of private, hard money, that kind of thing, especially if you've got good credit and you've got some experience. So, man, that's awesome. 14 units.
Yeah.
How much do you have to put down on that? Do you remember?
I think I put 50 down.
Okay.
I put 50 down on that. But there's a lot of times that I've used equity as collateral. So, like, there's one of my rentals. To kind of get into a little bit, I bought my first multifamily was an 8-plex unit, and it was just, the thing was almost condemnable. It was just terrible. And so I bought it with using equity from houses that I already had. So I didn't have to bring any money to the table. But I took a ton of money and I fixed it up and remodeled it, built new porches, thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I bought it at such a good price that from what I bought it for to what the bank appraised it for later on was like quadruple. So I quadrupled it, and then I didn't want to redo the loan. Like, I wanted to keep my equity position good and my payments where they were. So I just took a line of credit out on the equity. So therefore I have dry powder sitting over here for flips. I can use equity on a line of credit to buy my flips. So there again, I use bank money for my flipping business as well. So I could access my line of credit in 2 or 3 minutes. So instead of having to run and get a hard money loan or whatever, I'm able to close fast, close good, because I have all these, and I've also put rentals on lines of credit as well. So I have like huge amounts of lines of credit because with very, very low balances that I use for flipping. So I don't have to go put debt on a flip house. I just buy it with the equity that I already have, and then I'm able to renovate it and fix it up with either my own money or line of credit money. So
now, is this multiple banks, or do you prefer one bank, or is it important to kind of be spread out amongst many banks?
I don't get crazy with it. I have 3 banks. One bank that I use for 80% of my, probably 75% of my business is one bank, and they're in a very, very good equitable position with me. And then I have another bank, another lender that I'm friends with, that took me out to lunch about 300 times and begged me to start putting some stuff with him. So that's what we did. We moved some stuff around, and some stuff I had bought I put with him, and he gave me some lines of credit. And crazy enough, I don't have any balances on it, but I have like lines of credit just tied to my name, no assets at all. So just personal lines of credit. I'm an open book, man. I'll tell you everything. I don't have any debt on that, I don't have any balances on that. But that's to speak to how banks are. Like, they're banking the person. They're banking you as a person, and they know me and they know my products and all this, so they're banking the person.
Yeah. And your history, you've been bankable since you were 19 years old. It sounds
right.
like. Yeah. And that's important. Take care of that. Jacob, thank you.
Yeah.